Hi, it's Susan here and welcome to In the Craft Room. As we're still waiting on issue number 10 to be released, I'm going to be venturing into one of my make and creates. I've been dabbling in a bit of my dollhouse build and I've been dabbling in a few of my own make and creates while we've been waiting for the issues to be released. Today's make and create involves the Peter Rabbit patchwork quilt. It also involves my dollhouse. I'm going to be making a 1/12 scale quilt of the Peter Rabbit patchwork quilt for my dollhouse bed. To do that, I printed off an image of the completed quilt just on regular paper. I made it this size so that it will fit on to the bed correctly. Now that I had my correct size, I then printed this on one of my favourite mediums, which is the iron-on transfer paper. That's right, we're going to transfer this onto a fabric and then quilt it, making a mini 1/12 scale dollhouse quilt. So I've got my measure, I've got my transfer paper with the image printed on it already. I've also got my backing fabric, which is a white fabric. I'm going to iron this image onto it. It's in layers of 4. There's no wadding that's thin enough, so this will replicate the wadding when I sew, I hope. I've also got 2 pieces of green fabric to suit our room colour, the paint, which will then become the quilt. This will be sewn onto the quilt. And lastly, a bit of trim. My first step is to slice out the transfer paper to the exact size that we need for our white fabric. This is our transfer. I'm just going to measure that it fits onto our white fabric. And it fits nicely. And now for the fun bit. I've popped the iron on, it's heating up. We're going to be ironing on the transfer onto the fabric. I'm just giving our backing fabric a bit of a press first. To iron on the transfer, we remove the backing. A bit like the Bondaweb. And we carefully place it onto our fabric. And before I press it on, I'm just going to put a bit of fabric over the top and press. With the transfer, we need to keep the heat consistent, moving it back and forward. And here we have the beginning of our mini Peter Rabbit patchwork quilt. And I'm just making sure all of our fabrics before sewing are pressed. So my sewing machine is set up. I'm now going to quilt by sewing along the horizontal plane and then stitching along the vertical plane. I've never quilted before, but I assume that's what you would do. So the horizontal stitching is finished and it's looking quite cute. Now I'm going to be stitching along the vertical plane. So here we have our little mini quilted Peter Rabbit patchwork quilt. If you look carefully, you can see the stitching going in both directions and it's very cute. Next step is to make the backing. For the backing of our quilt, we've got this green gold dot fabric, which I'm going to sew together, print side together, and then turn it in the right way. Our backing quilt is sewn. I'm now going to be sewing the actual Peter Rabbit quilt onto the backing. So our blue ribbon border is sewn around the edge of the Peter Rabbit quilt and onto our backing fabric. I'm now going to be sewing on our pom-pom mini trim all around the edges. Our top and bottom are on. I'm now going to stitch the trim on the sides. So here we have our mini quilt with the trim. So here's our cute finished Peter Rabbit patchwork quilt, all ready for our 1 to 12 scale bed. If you look really closely, you can see the quilting stitch marks. It makes me really want to finish the actual quilt. Thank you for joining me today for my Make and Create. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye.